Alright, so this has become such a common question, I couldn't help but make a video on it because a lot of people are considering upgrading. A lot of you guys that are rocking iPhone 7s or 6Ss or maybe earlier, and you can't decide between the iPhone 10, not the 10S from 2017, and the iPhone 11, which just came out. Now, for a lot of you, it may seem like a very simple answer, but surprisingly, online I've seen a lot of people disagree. So I thought in today's video, I'd just very quickly and briefly summarize the differences, which one you should go for and why, especially considering these things are near exactly the same price, with the iPhone 11 starting at $700 and the iPhone 10, which you can now buy certified refurbished from Apple for $680. And by the way, when Apple certified refurbish something, they replace the glass, they replace the stainless steel, they replace the battery. So basically all the things you see and interact with are brand new. Very little parts of it are actually used. So basically buying brand new, and also you could probably find the iPhone 10 for cheaper on other sites, but for the sake of consistency, we're just gonna say it's basically the same price as the iPhone 11 and compare what you get between these two different iPhones. Let's begin. I think the long short of it, if you don't want to watch this whole video, is that the iPhone 10 has the better display, but the iPhone 11 has the better cameras. It's almost no competition between the cameras, unless you care about having a telephoto lens. I mean, both of these phones, at just about $700, rock dual cameras, but very different dual cameras on the back. iPhone 11 obviously rocks that ultra-wide, which is an interesting perspective. A lot of people prefer that, but if some of you do prefer having a telephoto, that's where the iPhone 10 is going to be a bit more applicable, because that does have a pretty solid camera on the back. No, it's probably not as great as the iPhone 11 Pro triple camera setup, but for $700, both lenses are dual optically stabilized, both lenses are 12 megapixels, they have pretty decent dynamic range, not as good as some of the later iPhones, but still a fairly solid camera nonetheless. Both lenses capable of 4K at 60, but once you get to that front-facing camera, that's where the iPhone 11 just kind of brutally destroys the iPhone 10. This camera can shoot up to 4K at 60, it's a 12 megapixel shooter, and it's a much wider angle. And something I wish I would have brought up yesterday is that when you're doing FaceTime calls on the newer generation iPhones, it defaults to that wider angle because it knows like you're talking to people on a video call. So that wider angle is very much noticed when you're doing FaceTime. And even when you switch to the rear facing camera for FaceTime, it uses the ultra wide lens, not the regular lens. And at this point in time, I don't see a way to change it, but honestly, I don't want to, because if you're showing someone something on FaceTime, it's really, really handy to be able to utilize those ultra-wide angles, and I'm glad Apple has those as the default. Whereas the front-facing camera on the iPhone 10, it's a 7 megapixel shooter, it's got pretty horrible dynamic range, and you're capped out at 1080 at 30 for video recording on the front. So not that great. And the iPhone 11 also has superior speakers, it has superior water resistance, and technically, you know, stronger glass than before. The other department, which should probably be a huge influence on your decision, is the iPhone 11's vastly better battery. It's an hour better than the XR last year, and the XR was already miles better than the iPhone 10. So if you care a lot about battery life, the iPhone 11 is also going to be a huge way to go. Not to mention the iPhone 11 is rocking the A13 chip, and the iPhone 10 is rocking the A11 chip, both of which are pretty fast. Honestly, there hasn't been like huge monumental speed improvements within the past couple of years. The A11 is still fine, but if you care about buying your phone and hanging on to it for a long time, I think it's worth mentioning that the iPhone 11 most likely is going to get more software updates than the iPhone 10 will. We don't know that for sure, but most likely. So as you can tell, as I'm listing all of these features in the video, the iPhone 11 appears to be the clear winner. Why would anyone go for the iPhone 10 aside from telephoto lens? Well, honestly, it comes down to the display. This is the one thing the iPhone 11 does not really shine a light on compared to the iPhone 10. That OLED display with its 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio, its deeper blacks, and its more HDR display is, I think, almost in every circumstance going to outshine the iPhone 11. So if you care deeply about screen to body ratio, as in you like thinner bezels and you like having a very, very rich display with lots of detail, the iPhone 10, I think, is still going to be the winner for you, because the iPhone 11 is still rocking that liquid retina display from last year. They didn't change it at all. Still not 1080p completely, and it's still an LCD panel. So in that aspect, if you care a lot about the screen, the iPhone 10 might win you over, but that's pretty much the only advantage it has in this situation. Aside from also, the iPhone 10 is at that 5.8-inch form factor. If you like smaller phones, maybe you're coming from an iPhone 6 and a 7 and you were never about those Plus models. You know, the iPhone 11 only comes in one size, so if you're on a $700 budget, you want a newish iPhone with Face ID and everything, the iPhone 10 at that 5.8-inch screen is a very comfortable and easy to fit in the hand model that also rocks a stainless steel frame, which personally I prefer over aluminum. Aluminum is nice, I have nothing against it, but stainless steel honestly feels more grippier to me, and I just kind of personally prefer that polish and that mirror finish it gives off. So the iPhone 10 for some of you may feel better in the hand, may feel more comfortable, and also if you care about having lots of local storage on your phone, this is where the iPhone 10 has a bit more of the affordable factor. From Apple directly, getting that certified refurbished, which of course has new glass, new battery, and all that, that only costs $809 to get the 256 gigs, whereas on the iPhone 11, if you want to get the 256 gig, you need to pay $850. So basically a little bit of difference there of $40 comparing the two, and I think for most people, the iPhone 11 is going to be a better option. Some of you may be really into displays and having the pixel density be really good, and maybe you just love stainless steel and you love smaller phones. So some of you may prefer the iPhone 10, but I think majority of the time the iPhone 11 is going to be better because most people likely care about battery life, they care about noticeably better camera performance, and I think this just has such a better camera than the iPhone 10 does. Even with its telephoto lens, the ultra wide is definitely more of a unique angle, whereas, you know, the telephoto lens allows you to have better quality when zooming in, but you can still zoom in on this, it's just going to be a bit more pixelated, whereas on the regular iPhone 10, you know, you cannot switch to an ultra wide. That's not something you can imitate because it just simply doesn't have it. And that front-facing camera not being as great. So while you may get that rich OLED display, you're compromising on a lot of things. I think your biggest concern with the iPhone 10 should be battery life, and that's why the iPhone 11 is, in my opinion, the winner at no surprise, but still completely acknowledging that for some of you, the iPhone 10 may be the better option. Comes down to what you care about most in a phone, and that sums up our comparison. So, which one is better for you, or do you not want either? Feel free to let me know about it by hitting me up over on Twitter or joining our Discord. This is your Alp Sheep here. I'll see you guys in the next one.